presentation that's all about securing success as NCEA, and it's a transcript really of the presentation that was given to parents and students on Tuesday the 26th of August 2014. So the first thing that we're going to look at is just a very brief overview of the NCEA. That's the National Certificate of Educational Achievement. And firstly, in terms of what it is, well, quite simply, it's our national qualification for senior secondary students here in New Zealand. It's not actually what the students are taught, that's the curriculum. It's actually about assessment and about measuring what's actually been learned, and that's really, really important that we make that distinction between the two. The approach to the assessment is different to what's occurred in the past. It's very much focused on the needs of learning now rather than what we have seen in the past. The focus is very much on measuring the learning, not ranking students, and to do this, students are actually measured against a preset number of standards rather than the achievement of other students. So results describe what students can actually do, not whether they fit into a ranked list of marks or not. And that's really an important difference between other systems that we've seen. So, in terms of how NCEA is actually assessed, well, it's a mixture of achievement and unit standards. External achievement standards are generally those that are set during examination type conditions. The exceptions to those are obviously within PE, RE and technology, where some of the externals are actually done under controlled conditions within the classroom during the normal academic year rather than that NCEA exam period at the end, and they quite often form reports, but external achievement standards generally are exams. Alongside those we have internal achievement standards and also unit standards, and those unit standards are generally limited to our vocational courses such as hospitality, for example, here at St John's College. So the standards themselves are split up certainly in terms of how they are actually assessed. With achievement standards you can either get a not achieved, achieved, achieved with merit or achievement with excellence. Quite simple though with unit standards, you either pass them or you don't, so you either get an achieved or not achieved. Every standard that's sat, whether it's a unit standard or an achievement standard, is worth a certain number of credits, and those credits obviously go towards their NCEA qualification. So that's very important in terms of how these things work. So the standards themselves are quite simply a description of what the standard can actually do. We've got some examples here of the types of statements that we might have within a standard and how well the student works towards demonstrating those standards will obviously then ascertain whether they get an achieved, achieved with merit or an achieved with excellence, and that's really, really important. Number of credits obviously vary from course to course, and generally though, depending on the combination of standards that are offered on courses, certainly at level 1, most are between 18 and 24 credits, and we can see a similar trend in terms of the number of credits per subject at levels 2 and level 3 also. So a student studying 6 level 1 subjects can potentially gain between 120 and 130 credits. Obviously some of those are going to be through internal standards and some of those will possibly be through external standards as well. So this is how things look at NCEA level 1. To pass your NCEA at level 1 you need to get 80 credits at level 1 or higher, but there is a catch, and that is that those 80 credits must include at least 10 credits from identified numeracy standards. Now those standards aren't just standards that we necessarily see in maths. There are some, for example, within the science faculty, physics, chemistry and also social studies with geography and also digital technologies that may actually accrue some of those credits for numeracy. In addition to that, we also need to ensure that the students get 10 credits from literacy standards, and many of those are available in almost all subjects, so it's not just exclusively from the English domain or Te Reo Māori domain either. So that's very important. We also have though course or subject endorsements, and certainly these are becoming more important, particularly now at level 2 and level 3, whereby universities are starting to look not just at NCEA endorsements but subject endorsements too. And the subject endorsement is where a student gains at least 14 credits at merit or excellence in one course in 1 year. 3 of those credits must be from internally assessed standards and at least 3 from externally assessed standards. The exceptions for that are PE and RE. That moves us on to our certificate endorsements, and this is where students actually meet the requirements for their NCEA, so get their 80 credits, but also that they have an endorsement. So for example, to get an excellence endorsement requires that you gain at least 50 excellence credits at that level or above. Likewise with merit, that means that you get either 50 excellence or merit credits at that level or above. The difference between these types of certificate endorsement and our subject endorsements is that these can accumulate and don't actually have to be earned in the same year, so that's really important to bear in mind. So how do we keep track of all these results and these credits as they're coming in? Well, every student, as we know, has an NSN number. They can actually log on with their personal NZQA logon to the website and view their record of achievement. This is particularly important to do if they've received credits from a number of different secondary schools. The only place they can check their overall credits is by logging on to the NZQA website. Within St John's College, our internal assessment results are submitted on a monthly basis following completion of those assessments to NZQA, and obviously there's a bit of lead time in terms of when our results from KMAR, that's our student management system, actually show live on the NZQA website. We've mentioned KMAR. All students and parents have access to our KMAR portal. This is accessed from the school website or through your mobile device. There are apps for iOS and Android, and this will allow the student or parent to actually see those standards that have been entered by St John's College, see the progress that they're making towards those, and obviously a breakdown of results. And this is really, really important, and what I want to go through just for a couple of minutes is showing you how to interpret that information. So I've got an example of a student here. The pie chart actually shows us an overall breakdown of their results. What we're going to do is look at obviously the current academic year, which is 2014, and we can see that 37 credits have actually been awarded. 4 at achieved, 10 at merit, and 23 at excellence. Next to that, you'll notice that we have the number attempted. So this student has achieved all 37 out of 37 credits that have been available so far this year, and therefore they've got a 100% conversion rate. So this student's doing pretty well. If we look at the merit and excellence, you can see that they've got 33 so far, so they're only 17 credits away from a merit endorsement. Obviously, to get an excellence endorsement, we'd need another 27 credits this year to achieve that. At the bottom, you can see the progress over levels 1, 2 and 3. And on the other side of this, you can see how many credits that they have been awarded so far. Now you'll notice that the number of credits for this year is 37, but it's actually showing 57 credits. And that's because at levels 2 and 3 a student can actually carry forward 20 credits from the previous level. So you can see here how well on track they are. We also go through and show whether they've got their literacy, and importantly for university entrance, whether they've got their university entrance literacy too. On the bottom part of this, on the KMAR portal, you'll notice that we have the total number of credits available by each subject. This is very useful because when you know how many credits have been sat, you know the total available, you know what's left on the table, and you can see whether the student is actually going to be on track to get those credits or not. So that's really important. For each of those subjects, it shows you whether the course is endorsable and the breakdown of credits within each subject area, so the number of external credits and the number of internal credits also. So this is really how things work, I guess, and where we need to think about where the students are. If we imagine that this black line is a student on their trajectory so far through NCEA, one of 3 things can actually happen. They can either carry on as they are on the same trajectory, which could mean them missing their credit floor of 80 credits to pass. That's shown by the blue line. Things could get worse, and they convert even less credits than they have been currently, and that's shown by the red line, or they can actually make some improvements, and you can see how that curve starts to get steeper, and that's obviously the green line. So what we're trying to do is use this as quite a good predictor tool to establish whether students need to be concerned as to whether they're going to be passing their NCEA or not. Again, They should be checking the NZQA website on a regular basis to make sure that they've been entered correctly, and any concerns that they might have should obviously be directed back to their subject teachers back in school. So to gain Level 2 certificate, quite simple, we need 80 credits, 60 of those from Level 2 and 20 from any other level. Normally those are accrued from Level 1. No literacy or numeracy requirements for Level 2, but English is a compulsory subject. And of course, to gain a Level 3 certificate, they need 80 credits, 60 of those at Level 3, 20 from any other level. No compulsory subjects, but university entrance has changed this year, and students do need to be aware of this. To gain your university entrance, you must get obviously at least 60 Level 3 credits. You must get at least 14 credits in each of 3 approved university subjects, and that list is available from the NZQA website. You also need to ensure that we have 10 numeracy credits as for NCEA Level 1, but the main difference is that we also need to start looking at 10 literacy credits at Level 2 or higher. Now these are actually distinguished into 2 subcategories: reading and writing, and students must gain at least 5 credits from reading and 5 for writing to ensure that they're meeting that university entrance criteria. So they must make sure that they keep that in check. Now of course that's the minimum to get to university, but many universities are now looking at a lot more than just Level 3. Quite often merit and excellence endorsements are used to select students for places on both courses, but also halls of residence. Now one thing I found for this year, or last year just gone through, was something that University of Canterbury had put in place for their undergraduate entrance scholarships. And you can see that actually it's not just about Level 3, and this is the important thing for students to realise now, that university is not just about Level 3. They're going back, they're looking at Level 2 results as well. And you can see here quite clearly that the value of those scholarships is dependent not just on Level 3 performance, but also Level 2 performance as well. So that's certainly worth bearing in mind for students. Again, lots more information on the NZQ website, so please make sure that you do refer to that. On their homepage there's a whole section there that's highlighted for students that they should actually be looking at. Again, lots of information with regards to exam timetables, information about all the standards that are offered. For each standard there's samples and exemplars of internal assessments. Previous external exam papers and assessment schedules are there, and these are the things that students should really be using to ensure that they're enriching their whole revision and preparation process for externals should they be sitting in those subjects. So really important information on the site. The second part of this presentation is very much going to talk to you about revision, study skills, and how you as a parent can really support your son through what can be quite a challenging time in terms of preparing themselves for NCEA externals. We all know about the brain, and we have 2 parts of that, the left brain and the right brain, and it's very much about trying to get the students to understand their preferred way of working. Students have many blocks to learning, whether it be distractions, lack of concentration, motivation, time management and organisational skills, whether they're procrastinating about things and putting things off, specific skills, the self-discipline, perseverance, obviously stress and a lack of understanding as well. And it's very important for parents to understand these blocks to effective learning, because as a parent what we need to try and do are minimise those so that our students are put into the best learning environment that they possibly can be. And there's been a few student surveys that have been done, and it's quite interesting to see what boys in particular like least about parents' approach to their studies. They don't like the lagging, they don't like the continual interruption, they don't like being compared to others, making them to do chores, getting angry with them, not being satisfied with a grade that they're actually proud of, making me answer questions when I ask them for answers, and not monitoring their progress and putting on too much pressure. So you can see as a parent it's very important to get that balance between the approach that we take, making sure that we're actually motivating, inspiring and engaging our children to make sure that they do the best that they possibly can. So we know what those barriers are. Think about what we can do at home to support our children in terms of creating that really effective environment for them. And motivation is a key thing for that, and motivating our students and knowing what makes our children tick is very, very important. Some are driven very specifically by the sheer nature of achievement and the goals that are put in place. Others about pleasing other people, their peers. Really important that we understand. So make sure that you know what your son's drivers are. Make sure that we can learn from that we set reasonable goals, and that we actually lessen the focus on other goals that are peripheral to what we're actually wanting to achieve. Now, time management is really, really important, and certainly with boys, time management and organisational skills are some of those key areas that they really need the help and the support on. Please don't make assumptions about the fact that they have these skills already. They need to be taught what it means to be organised. They need to have that continual reminder about how time gets spent on work, and that a little time is better than nothing at all. Routines are very important, and we'll talk in a moment about this notion of what we call a 30-minute program as well. So these study behaviours and habits are really, really important, and there are 6 big things that people need to be aware of to get themselves in the right frame of mind to really get study working for them to support externals. Students need to have the self-discipline, making sure that they take responsibility for their learning, taking responsibility for the work that needs to get done, and that they have that self-discipline to ensure that whatever program they put in place, they follow it through. They need the ability to delay gratification, and by that we're talking about the fact that they think, right, I've done some revision, and therefore we stop. The gratification is getting to the end of all the exams knowing that they've done the best that they possibly can. They also need to be able to avoid or manage their own distractions, how they overcome procrastination and keep themselves focused and don't put things off, that we've got that persistence towards study, and that they're also resilient, that they're not getting too affected by stress, that they have a very clear methodical approach, that they're confident in the routines that they have so that study is effective. So it's really important that we start developing some study skills for them. It's important that you understand their habits and their behaviours so that we can focus on the habits, not the tasks in hand, that those are discussed with your children at home so that you can actually start working towards a program that's going to work, and that we try and start talking in learnish at home so things are much more focused towards learning, and how then we go about monitoring and rewarding improvements in the study habits that we see. So that gentle, relentless pressure is really important, and routines really do help to support that. So there's a few suggested steps. Firstly, make sure that work being studied is reorganised. Make sure that they identify their own learning styles, and there's some really good support links on the school website to help you do that. And encourage your children to work in a manner that's consistent then with their preferred learning styles. There are lots of books on study skills. It's not rocket science. It's about trying to identify really what works for them. So in terms of organisational skills, we've talked about how important those are. Make sure that the boys chart when assessments are due, that they know when the deadlines are. It's about being aware of goals. It's about them knowing also what you expect of them too, putting systems in place to help them develop a really organised approach, and let them earn their right to independently manage their studies based on how they're going. They've really got to take ownership of the whole process. That's really, really important. So some strategies. Generally, there are 3 types of learning style that we need to be aware of: visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners. And there's a fantastic questionnaire. It takes the students about 5 minutes to complete, and it's links on the school website that they can go through, and it looks at their preferred learning style. So visual learners account for about 65% of people. They work really well using diagrams, reading maps, essays, anything that show processes, so flowcharts and things like that are really important. They maybe use mind maps and things like this, but they do need to have quiet study time. They work by taking detailed notes, maybe converting some of those into pictures. So there's a few things that they need to do. Think about arranging notes in different ways, how they redraw things, might use flashcards, recalling things, all really important to their approach. Auditory learners tend to be quite natural listeners. They tend to focus very much on writing responses to lectures that they've heard or oral exams. They're quite often very good at using word association, and some really good strategies for these students are then putting together their own podcasts and oral revision notes. And of course, with technology these days, whether they've got their smartphones, their iPods and everything else, it's very easy for them to record these kinds of voice notes and memos as well. So it's really important for them to spend time in quiet places recalling lots of ideas. Last type then are kinesthetic learners, and these are very much the hand-on learners. They're not into the long essays or the tests. They learn by solving real-life problems, and they like a very hands-on approach to learning. They don't tend to have very long attention spans, and it's important that they take breaks from study, so they study in those short blocks. And they study with others, and they use memory games and flashcards to memorize facts. So lots of things that kinesthetic learners need to do. Now, obviously what's important is identifying the preferred learning styles, having discussions about what the implications of those learning styles might be on how they revise, and making sure that revision is all about active revision. Students who kid themselves by sitting there for 2 or 3 hours at a time just reading their notes, they are not going to perform to their potential in the exam. That's passive revision. Revision needs to be active. To make it active, the students need to put themselves under pressure by doing past papers and actually working out what it is they don't know, and then using active revision strategies to go through and actually address those key focal areas that they need to be focusing on. Quite often students revise the things that they already know because it makes them feel good. We want to make sure that whatever time is spent on revision is quality time spent revising and getting to grips with those key areas that they're not sure of and that they're not really understanding fully in readiness for those exams. So active learning, it's all about really trying to use as many of the sensory learning approaches as possible. Whether you are a kinesthetic or a visual or a auditory learner, trying to use a bit of all of this together will ensure that the students are more successful about remembering more of the content. And of course, going through, we've put lots of resources onto the school website to support our students. They're able to download the external exam timetable along with a blank schedule so they can put in their own exams. And more importantly, if they find this by going to the academics section, clicking on NCEA Study Support, we actually have got download links to both a Word document version and a PDF version of a revision planner template that takes them through every week now up until the external exams. And we're suggesting that they need to be trying to put in place 3 30 to 40 minute study sessions a day to ensure that they're going to be ready for those externals, assuming that they've got lots of externals coming up. We've got the timetable that they can use to actually be putting in their own exams, start making notes about what topics are going to be in each of the exams and how they're going to best address those. So in conclusion, it's really about you remembering as a parent not to interrupt the studies, try and get the balance of chores, keep focused, work with them. Frustration, as much as we have those frustrations with them maybe not working in the way that we want them to, we can't be showing that anger towards them. Nagging certainly doesn't work. Monitoring them is really important, and don't pile on the pressure with them. So to be the most useful strategies, it's all about giving them that support, that encouragement, that positivity, getting them to really believe in themselves and having that positive mental attitude, knowing that when they get into those exams, if they're feeling confident, they're going to produce work that really reflects what they're truly capable of. Try and give them practical help and guidance and support. Leave them to it when they're actually working, but try and give them a bit of a steer by keeping them on task. Show some support by reviewing and helping them to edit their work. Take an interest in what they're doing. Provide resources for them to help them, and that might be the environment, whether it be somewhere quiet to work, but even things like good healthy food to feed the brain while they're working is really, really important. Make sure that as a parent that you've also seen sight of the externals timetable so that you're knowing when those externals are and also when those internals deadlines are due. Help them in the process of setting goals and actually put some trust into them the way that they actually study. So we hope that you found this useful. please don't hesitate to contact us at the college should you have any questions. And don't forget, if you're not already following us on our Facebook page, then please do so, as over the next few weeks we'll be putting up lots of study tips for the students and parents to ensure that this year is a really successful one for them with their NCEA studies.